If I had a nickel for every time Hoyoverse said that they were taking a specific culture and using it as inspiration for their game, and they completely mischaracterized said culture, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Genshin Impact, one of the most top-rated games since its release in 2020, that is highly praised for its incredible music and world-building, gameplay, and character design. That game has won a plethora of awards to showcase its incredible innovation in the gaming world. However, there's one itty bitty, if you look really hard, you can see right there, a little problem this game seems to struggle with, and that's the concept of melanin. What is melanin, you ask? According to this article from the National Library of Medicine, melanin is, and I quote, a term used to describe a large group of related molecules responsible for many biological functions, including pigmentation of skin, hair, and photoprotection of skin and eye. In this situation in particular, we're going to be discussing the concept of skin color, because I guess to back up, if you've never played Genshin Impact, something to be of note is that the game takes place in a sort of fantasy realm where there are 7 nations. There are 7 nations in this land called Teyvat, and in Teyvat, the nations are Mondstadt, Liyue, Inazuma, Sumeru, Fontaine, Natlan, and Snezhnaya. Currently, we have 5 of those regions that are available for players to play at the time of recording this. Now, what's interesting about these said regions is that each region in particular is based off of an actual place in real life. So, Mondstadt is based off of Germany, Liyue is based off of China, Inazuma is based off of Japan, and Fontaine is based off of France. You might be wondering, Nadia, why'd you skip over Sumeru? Because Sumeru comes before Fontaine. Well, I'm gonna get there because really, this all really started with Sumeru. Well, it actually started prior in my opinion, but like, what do I know? I only started playing Genshin, I think, when Sumeru dropped. I think was when I started seriously playing it. I don't remember. Time isn't real. It's fine. First off, let's talk about Sumeru, because it kind of leads into the conversation and the reason why I'm making this video, because the whole situation has been very interesting to see online. The Sumeru patch came out in August of 2022, and this said region was said to be based off of South Asian and Middle Eastern cultures. And so when you hear that, you think, oh, okay, I have kind of an idea of like what that would look like for the most part. Now me personally, I am neither South Asian nor Middle Eastern. However, typically people from those regions tend to not be pale. Just saying. So it's interesting to see how when this patch came out, that majority of the characters that are playable are in fact pale. Now, a lot of people would be like, oh my god, well, pale people can exist in these cultures, like, it's like, that's okay, sure, but even so, even if you are somewhat of the more Caucasian variety, still, in that specific type of region, you would not be whiter than Chimmy's face, okay? I'm not even exaggerating when this is Al Hatham with a tan right here, okay? Not to get all, like, realistic, but did you know in order to get a tan, the UV index has to be at least in the range of like 3 to 5. If you so happen to be the color of my palm right here, if you're in an area that has 3 to 5, you could catch a tan. Like, that's not a threat, that's just a fact. That's like the average from what I found. What's interesting to note is that the UV index in South Asia in specific tends to be around 8 to 12. So the fact that this region, when it dropped, and then like as the game progresses, they start to give us more characters from this region, it's just wild to note that of the 15 playable characters that are from Sumeru, only 4 of them are tan adjacent. But anyways, when this came out, rightfully people were upset because what do you mean? Like, there was a lot of other issues within Sumeru, but basically a lot of people were upset. But then the other people on the other end were like, oh, just wait until Natlan, then you'll get your proper brown representation, because we were told that Natlan, which is the region that comes after Fontaine, is going to be based off of Latin American, Polynesian, and West African cultures, which again, if you look at that demographic of people that pertain to those said cultures, they're not the color of pale. So you can imagine. And I was there. It was like 4 a.m. I had finally gotten my luggage from baggage claim. I was in the car. I'm on Twitter, and all of a sudden I see that the teaser trailer dropped, and oh my God. It was so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing for hoyoverse. I literally, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? From this, everyone was like, nah, we're done. Are you kidding me? I just really want to talk about it because like, I just think it's so crazy that you say one thing and then you just obviously decide, what if we whitewash this? Yeah, like, no. Because ever since they dropped it and they've been dropping the drip marketing for the new characters that are coming out with the new region, it's so interesting because from that, people have been taking those splash arts and they've been editing the skin tone to meet accordingly to the culture. And what's interesting is that the character designs look so much better than what is the official artwork. So then for the most part, everyone's been like calling out Genshin and calling out hoyoverse and saying, hey, fix this. I don't know how game development works, but they are a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm sure they could figure out how to adjust the settings in the freaking skin tone for characters because they have it. They have shown that they can have darker skinned characters because they do. Anytime there is any sort of character that is of a darker skin tone variety, they're always an NPC. More specifically, the enemies you battle. So let me get this straight. You have good guys and bad guys. All the good guys are of a pale, lighter, white-skinned variety. Okay. And the bad guys, especially in Sumeru, the enemies here have a darker skin tone. And oh, look at that. They also have locks and they have black adjacent hairstyles. Oh, that's interesting. That's so interesting. What's even more infuriating adds just to the fire of this mess. The fact that with these new characters that are coming out with Natlan, that they did not put as much care. Because with the Natlan characters, there have been several cases where people are pointing out that they're mismatching terminology with the cultures that they're referencing with their characters. Example, I'm just gonna say before I get into it, I just want to apologize for any names and words that I mispronounced. Listen, I can barely speak English and that is my first language. I don't talk to people and so I never learn how to properly say things. I can read the words fine and spell it correctly, but I can't save it to save my life. And I'm sorry, just apologies in advance. There's a new character called Kachina and her name is derived from Native American culture. Okay, Native American, think America. In the little prompt that they have where they explain like, oh, this is her and this is what she do. In that little synopsis, they give her this title of Utabiti, which when translated means resilience. In Swahili, which is an African language. It's on a separate continent. Native American culture here in America. Swahili here in Africa. Baby, those are two separate hemispheres. Did none of y'all check the references on whatever wiki page you were reading? It's so infuriating because it's been about a week since they've released the announcement and the teaser trailer for Natlan. And ever since then, Genshin fans have been very vocal about like, hey, and what's crazy is the fact that Genshin Impact is always updating. They're always updating their games. Like if there's one thing they're always doing, it's always sending me an apology email saying, oh, we're so sorry for this. We fixed it. And I'm like, girl, I don't even know what you're apologizing for, but thanks for the free primogens. They're always constantly updating the smallest issues in this game. And yet when there's an actual problem that needs to be fixed in the terms of representation, suddenly it's, oh, I don't know what what is this survey that we send out? I don't know what that is. I can't read that. Like, feedback. Never heard of her. Instead of dealing with the consequences of their actions, because Genshin, if you look at their Twitter, what they'll do whenever they have like a character or a region that they want to like promote, they'll always use the hashtags Genshin Impact and then just a single word pertaining to that region, which is what they did with Natlan at first. They said Genshin Impact and Natlan. However, they've started to use for their drip marketing Genshin Impact, Genshin Natlan, because everyone was flooding the Natlan tag with their grievances. Okay. That is just so bonkers to me. It's so frustrating because I do enjoy playing the game. They do so much dumb shit that could be avoided if they just, I don't know, had a diversity hire on their PR team. Because like, they've also expressed colorism and racism even in the gameplay. It's ridiculous. Like when Paimon was in Sumeru's shoe, I said, the food here is so burnt and gross. Let's not eat it, traveler. Or there's this one scene, and I remember this. You run into this girly pop who's from Sumeru when you're in Fontaine. You run into her in Fontaine, and you're like, oh my god, girl, you look so good. And there's two two voice lines. Both are awful options that says something along the lines of, wow, you sound and look so cultured now. What happened to you? It is 2024. Why are we still doing this? Don't even get me started on the apparent white NPCs in Natland that have braids. This is what I will say. Hoyoverse is a multi-billion-dollar company, as I stated earlier. They should in fact be held accountable for this absolute nonsense. Like this, it's ridiculous. Any normal, sane person would agree. But like for those of the people who are like, actually, no, shut the frick up. Shut up. They should be held accountable for their overtly colorist and racist malarkey that they've input in the game. Because the minute you decide you're going to take a specific culture and draw inspiration of it and use it to influence a region and its characters and the storyline and the plot, you have to do it justice. I don't know what to tell you. Those are the rules. For you to say you're doing that only to warp it into something that it's not, for many people, Genshin Impact specifically is a way for them to escape from the harsh truth of reality. And for you, Hoyoverse, to take the culture that belongs to many people and completely bastardize it is absolutely disrespectful, and you really should reconsider what it is the hell you're doing. Because you can't go on to say that like our mission statement is to make sure that everyone enjoys our games and blah blah blah, and then be like, oh, this doesn't reflect real life. Well, which is it? Make up your mind. To summarize, if you're not going to properly represent a culture, don't do it. Example of them doing it specifically in the case of Natland, there's a character that you briefly see in the trailer named Ororon, which apparently is based off of the West African deity named Oloron, inspired by Nigerian people. They hit him with the snow filter on 10 eyes. That's insane. That is so... What? The Pyro Archon is Sunset Shimmer, first of all. I'm gonna say it wrong, but in the game, her name is Mavuika. And she's based off of the Maori deity, Mahuika, who is a fire goddess. Does this girly pop look Maori in any adjacent way? No. Why say you're gonna do this when you don't? Just don't do it. And like, literally, if you don't want to have brown people in your game, don't have brown people in your game and just make it strictly a game that has only people that are the shade of Chimmy's face. Like, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, then okay. But don't go on to say, oh, we're making this region and it's gonna be based off of such and such influences. And then don't do that. Like, I don't understand why you would. Like, I don't, like, what? I need to wrap this up because I've been here too long. But basically, this whole situation that's been unraveling on Twitter for the past few days, and who knows, maybe by the time this gets up, Genshin will hit us with the classic, I have made a grave and severe lapse in my judgment. But I highly doubt that, because if there's one thing I've learned from real life politics, the only way to get change is by interfering with Big Brother's bag. So if you play Genshin Impact, or actually if you play any game that's from Hoyoverse, I would suggest and implore you to not spend any money on these games because they are free to play. And I know you want to get these characters, but let's be so real. You have to pay your car insurance, and that twink is not going to help you get it. I don't think I've played Genshin since that quest that involved Arlie. I don't know how to say her name, so I just call her that. Please don't yell at me. I'm sorry. I really have not felt the need to play Genshin because, for one, I've already triple crowned Nebula and Wanderer. Why would I? What else am I need to do? Mess with their bag, and maybe they'll be like, maybe we should read those feedback surveys. Anyways, that's all for me. I pretty much have just been keeping up with this story on Twitter. Every day I go on, I'm like, wow. Okay. If you enjoyed this video, that's awesome. By all means, comment your main. I don't actually know what that means. I think definitely messing with their bag might make them reconsider some things. But what do I know? I'm just a person on the internet. Until next time, my dream believers and adventure seekers. Bye.